Hey everyone, how are you doing this afternoon or this morning or evening, depending on where you are? My name is Michaela Valletta, also known as the Body Scientist, and I'm live on my IG page, and I will save this and repost it to my YouTube page. In case you're unfamiliar with me, I am a strength and conditioning coach certified by the NSCA. I have a background in exercise and sports science with a concentration in strength and conditioning, a minor in sports nutrition. I did graduate work in applied physiology and nutrition, and currently I am working on a Master of Science in Medical Cannabis Science and Therapeutics. And I am a doula, I'm a sacred sexual educator. So basically everything that's involved with taking our body to its highest level, performing at its highest level. And there are many components to that, okay? It's about what we're eating. It's about what we're doing with our body. It's about what we're putting on our skin. It's about the air we're breathing. It's about our brain health, our mind-body connection, our sexual health. You know, all those things play a role into our overall health, okay? Which is one of the reasons why I love cannabis medicine, because it can be used to replace so many pharmaceuticals, which are not good for us, okay, which have terrible side effects and stop our body from healing. Okay, so that's my whole approach, is preventative, but also, you know, if something happens, why do you have this issue and how do we bring the body back into homeostasis, okay? So that is my whole approach, all right? And so, you know, I'm also a dancer. That was the other thing I forgot to mention. So growing up, I was a multi-sport athlete. I played basketball, I played softball, I dabbled in soccer a little bit, I ran track a little bit, fenced. And growing up, I studied classical ballet and tap at the Dance Theater Harlem and Harlem School of the Arts. As an adult, I became very much immersed in dances of the African diaspora, particularly in the Americas and the Congo, okay? So in 2006, I began to study Haitian folkloric dance, Afro-Cuban dance, which is a wide umbrella. When you say Afro-Cuban, there's many things under that umbrella. Afro-Brazilian samba, a little bit of capoeira, and other Afro-Brazilian things. Afro-Dominican, I grew up in New York around Caribbean people, so I grew up dancing merengue, but there are other Afro-Dominican dance forms and rhythms as well. Same thing with Afro-Puerto Rican stuff, bomba y plena. And of course, Puerto Rican salsa, because I grew up around that in Harlem. What else? Afro-Colombian stuff, Afro-Peruvian. And I'm also hugely into Afro-American dance forms. I'm Black American, and we have a lot of our dances. Like I live in Chicago now. There's Chicago Step, which comes from Lindy Hop, which comes out of Harlem. You have twerking and bouncing from the South. So there's a lot of different Black dances that I study, and then the Congo. So dances from the Congo have had the biggest influence on Black dance in the Americas in terms of hip movements and footwork, right? So that's something that usually characterizes Black dance in the Americas is footwork for sure. Usually the hips as well, but definitely the footwork. So I have made videos in the past where I talked about how dance is my yoga. I had a video I made like probably over 10 years ago talking about how Haitian dance is my yoga. And I said that because, you know, in yoga, you see people get into certain positions and they focus on breathing and maintaining these positions. In Haitian folkloric dance, you get into very similar positions, except your hips are undulating and your shoulders are moving and your head and your neck, okay? And they're all on different rhythms. You might have 4 or 5 drummers, and each drummer is playing a different rhythm. And your head is on one rhythm, your feet is on another rhythm, your hips are on another, your shoulders are on another, and your chest might be on another, right? And then you're changing directions, and you're executing specificity in your moves, you know what I'm saying? And you have to be able to listen to these drums and align these rhythms with what's going on in different parts of your body at once. So, and breathing is essential, okay? Learning how to breathe properly is something that dance taught me. Now, when somebody like my mom is 73 years old, maybe about 5 years ago, I got her into yoga because I realized my mom was not breathing properly. And sometimes when people aren't breathing properly, it's a mental thing. Okay, sometimes they don't know how to breathe properly. A lot of people aren't conscious. Like as a trainer, a lot of what I do is to get people to pay attention to what they're doing, right? A lot of people have really bad technique. They're not even aware of what they're doing physically, which is why when I first got into, I had a background in sports and dance growing up. But in college, when I started teaching group fitness classes, I got very frustrated because you have a room full of people, and some people are a hot mess, and they need personal instruction. Like there could be mirrors all around, and you keep telling them chest out, shoulders rotated back, abs engaged, and you're like showing it from every angle you could show it, and then you're like, okay, let's go to the right, and you look at the person, and they're like totally hunched over, and they're going to the left, and it's like no, like some people really need personal attention to get to work on that body awareness, and trying to do that with steps and choreography is too hard for them. So then even with that, sometimes when people are trying to learn choreography and dance and remember steps, they forget to breathe, right? So a lot of people have no awareness of their bodies. And I always say, like, when I first got into fitness, it was hard because, my original passion was to train athletes, right? To train high-level athletes, particularly female athletes. I was never against training men, but I had a real passion for female athletes. And because we're often overlooked and our bodies are different and we're not little men. And there's a lot of considerations that aren't taken into account with female athletes. And a lot of times male athletes have this big ego. It's, there are things. I have a soft spot for female athletes, but I was never against working with men. But when you're training somebody for athletic performance, it's a little bit different approach. Well, it's a lot of bit different approach than when someone is just like, they just have aesthetic goals, right? And it's also about fine-tuning certain things. And then also like having a dance background. Dance is an art form where you look at somebody and you are to mimic exactly what they're doing, exactly at the same time, exactly where they lift their arm to, how they move at the time that they do it. Your hand is like this and not like this, just it's very specific, and it has to be done with grace and control to a rhythm, right? So it's extreme body awareness. So like for me, it was hard when I got into general fitness, and I realized how much help people needed to like just do what to me seems simple correctly, right? But it's important. Technique and form is everything, especially when you are lifting weights. When you have some type of load on you, if your spine is not aligned properly, if what's going on with your knees is not aligned properly, if your shoulder, you can end up with a knee injury or a back injury and a shoulder injury. We don't want that because our shoulders are the most unstable joints in our body. And usually when you get a shoulder injury, it's permanent. Like you can do things to strengthen it, but it's permanently going to be a little unstable. We don't want back injuries. We don't want spinal injuries. Our spine is really important. And nobody wants a slip disc and stuff like that because then you have lifelong pain that you're battling. And it can affect your function. And we definitely don't want knee injuries because our knees are the most stressed joints in our body. So we use our knees. Our knees carry us around our entire life, all right? So we want to protect our knees. We want to protect our spine, and we want to protect our shoulders, okay? We don't want those things to happen. So I find that, there are many different, benefits to exercise in general, right? I'm a huge believer in strength training for men and women, especially as we age. Super duper important, okay? A lot of people overlook it. A lot of people act like any exercise is good exercise. People will say, oh, just take a walk every day and that's better than doing nothing. Taking a walk is better than doing nothing, but unless you're walking up the steepest hills in San Francisco, it's not a workout. It's just basic stuff that you should just be doing anyway. I'm from New York City. We walk regardless, okay? Even if people have cars, we walk. A lot of people in America don't walk at all. They walk from their car parked in their front driveway into their house, okay? And they go to drive-thrus, they go into strip malls, and they try to park as close as they can to the entrance. They're never walking upstairs or anything. You know what I'm saying? So walking is just regular to me. But you need to do a lot more than that, and we need to engage in strenuous activity. Okay, that is what keeps your body, strong and aging gracefully, and keeps your hormones right. Okay, I just did a video about how testosterone affects the male and female, how it affects the male and female sex drive, but also like overall health, right? And so when we engage in strenuous activity, that is going to increase our testosterone and really get our blood flowing and get that boost. It's anabolic as opposed to catabolic, right? We don't want to engage in catabolic exercise in general, but definitely not as we age, okay? Because as we're aging, and when I say like after 30, we're in a catabolic state anyway, basically like on a state of breakdown. How quickly we break down depends on what we did before 30 and what we do after 30, right? But so you don't want to contribute to that breakdown by engaging in catabolic activities. That's going to break down your muscle and your bones, right? Especially your muscles. So, ever since, I find that the other reason why I say that when I talk about, Black dance being like my yoga is because, that when you're dancing, being forced to focus on the breath, being forced to focus on what you're doing with your body and your technique. But then you have added things like foot stomping, okay? Like there's medicine in stomping the feet in terms of just getting energy out, shaking the body, shaking and gyrations, right? We see cultures all over the world with shake and gyrating dances, with shake dances, but shaking and gyrating helps to reset our energy fields. So something is stressing us, and this is acknowledged in Chinese medicine, okay? Because we do have energy fields. We do have meridians and chakras, but meridians are like veins of energy, okay? And they affect each of our organs. All of our organs have a meridian associated with it. And so acupuncture is basically based off of little micro points on meridians, right? So if something traumatic happens to us, or we even consume the wrong food or something, it can cause having certain thoughts, which a lot of times is from trauma, can cause certain energy fields to run backwards, certain meridians to run backwards, and causes other physiological problems and psychological problems in the body. So shaking the body can help to reset all of that, okay? And I find it interesting that in the, I could say the African diaspora in the Americas, but I'd rather say the Afro-Indigenous diaspora, because when you're talking about the Americas, North America, South America, Central America, the Caribbean, a lot of us also have American Indian blood, copper-complected blood from this land. And so it's a mixture of both, right? It's not just African. So let me say, and the dances that are done on this that come from the Americas vary in a lot of ways from dances in Africa, even though they have this, it's like this back and forth, right? But there's some differences, and I feel like, the level of shaking and gyrating you might find in Brazil, in Dominican Republic, in Colombia, in Atlanta, in New Orleans, is different sometimes in a lot of West African dances, unless you're talking about the Congo. But there was a lot of trauma also that happened, and these, even though people may not be conscious of it, first of all, listening to music that you like, that makes you feel good, that speaks to you, does something for your energy and your hormones as well, okay? So, first of all, you listen to something that makes you feel good. We all know music is healing. And that could be explained in a scientific way if somebody really wants to get into the science of it. But I think we all know that, okay? So, especially when it's something that you enjoy. So you're listening to music that you really love. You are then embodying dancing. So you are shaking body parts, head on one rhythm, shoulders on another rhythm, hips, feet, you're changing directions. You might be kicking your leg up, you going down, you doing whatever, your brain is in your hips. You know what I'm saying? This helps to reset your energy fields and take your mind off of what might be stressing you out or making you upset, and it just helps to regenerate so much energy, right? And then you're physically moving, okay? So you're getting your blood flow going, you're getting your heart rate up, okay? You are, in order for your body to move in certain ways, Your mind has to tell your body what to do, okay? So when people undermine, okay, the mental energy it takes to complete certain physical feats, especially very impressive ones. You have people who do very impressive things with their body. That's coming from their mind, right? Because our muscles don't contract unless that signal comes from our mind. And the thing about dance is something where when you're doing it, you're constantly thinking about this move. Like I was in an Afro-Cuban dance class last night, right? And since COVID, I haven't been dancing like I used to. And also since I moved to Chicago, because I'm from New York. I've been living in Chicago for the past 5.5 years, but I go back and forth to New York a lot. But there was a time in my life when I was taking Afro-Cuban, Afro-Haitian, Afro-Brazilian, yada, 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 several hours a week. And then there was a time when I was on the pole several hours a week, right? And, it's kind of died down a bit in the past few years. And it's like, okay, I have to get back to that. That is something that I've always felt like I need to keep doing. Because when it comes to your body, if you don't use it, you will lose it. Okay? And as I've aged, remaining physically active and really engaging in strenuous activity has become more and more important to me. Right? So it's not just like when people think, I'm just going to go jog outside, or even doing stagnant things like yoga. Yoga's cool. Okay? It's cool. I don't knock it. I definitely recommend it to my mom. But I think that dance is a higher level than that, right? And because to have to, it's interesting because I can't really demonstrate it right now, but Afro-Cuban dance forms, let's say, or Orisha dances, some people may not have any idea what I'm talking about, but you have like Afro-Cuban, let's say, Orisha dances, and then you have Haitian folklore dances. They both involve, chest movements, hip movements, footwork, shoulder work, okay? The way that certain energies kind of flow through you and pop through you. But they're different, right? So they're to the naked eye, they may look similar. And they're both highly intricate in ways that, I find it very hard for someone to master both. Either somebody is better at Haitian stuff or they're better at Afro-Cuban stuff, right? And so I've studied both, but I really, over the years, know a lot more Haitian folklore than Afro-Cuban. So going to this class last night was very challenging, again, because it's like, to someone looking at it, it may not look that difficult. But the rhythms are complex, and it's not a 1 and a 2 and a 3 kind of count. It's something, the counts are a lot of off beats. It's not symmetrical, okay? And you cannot do it without also visualizing that you have a machete. Visualizing that you're cutting something. Visualizing, okay, that whatever it is, whatever it is that you're using. You know what I'm saying? You have to think about that. Like if you're waving some horsetails above your head, you have to have it up and visualize it. Because if you really had horsetails that you're swinging around and you have them right here, you'd be hitting yourself in the face. So just having that whole visual of all of that, you know what I'm saying? And then there's very subtle differences. Like this dance I was doing last night, the chest undulates. Like the chest kind of like did this, right? Now in Haitian, there's a Haitian dance called Yanvalou, and I'm not going to get up and start dancing. It might be easier if I had a cameraman. But there's a Haitian dance called Yanvalou that has an undulating, but it's starting from the hips, right? The hips are going. It's hard to do it in the chair. But if you can see, I'm moving here, right? But this Afro-Cuban dance, it was like, and he kept stressing not to move down here. It was so difficult for me not to do that while I'm in a lunge position and I'm moving forward while doing that. But I'm moving forward but can't move my hips where I'm used to doing that move, moving forward in Haitian dance, engaging here. So I'm not doing that. Keeping this, my arms are doing something too. You know what I'm saying? That's just not easy. And then you're doing it on, you have certain drums playing particular rhythms and you have to be on those intricate beats. The timing of when you switch up something. It's not something that can be measured in this like exact mathematical thing. Some people want these counts of 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 1 and 2. That is not how these dances and these rhythms are. Then when you learn the drumming, that stuff can't be written down. So you have a lot of people that play instruments and they read written music, which is amazing. But with these things, you can't write that music down. It doesn't even fit. I don't know how to read music. I do drum a bit. But I do know that from what I understand about reading music, the Afro Diasporic drumming is in these a lot of offbeats in between the notes in between the notes, in between the notes. And there's something that you have to kind of embody and memorize. So also when I'm drumming, that's like meditation for me. And it's a mind-body programming, which some people will say dancing is like drumming. Dancing is not like drumming. I'm more of a dancer than a drummer, but dancing is drumming are not alike, okay? Yeah. Yep. It is, and then the thing with drumming, you like when I've drummed with like, so I might be sitting with 3 of the drummers, 4 of the drummers. We're all playing a different rhythm. And this, even talking about this is making me be like, I need to get back to this. When COVID happened and it kind of threw everything off, like I was like, damn, I've never been so, grateful to have had something like that in my life. As soon as it comes back, I'm going to go. So I really need to get back to classes. But with drumming, it's like I'm playing one particular thing, right? And the 4 drummers next to me are playing something else. But I have to stay in my pocket and keep it consistent, right? Because if I even stop for a second, if I'm a little off for a second, it throws everything off. And a dancer with a trained ear and a musician with a trained ear can hear that. So you have to really focus on, staying in your pocket, staying on your timing. Okay? Staying on your timing in a different way than you do when you're dancing. So it's just a different way to exercise your brain, your mind-body connection. I feel like having coordination and good timing says a lot about your overall health, performance, and mind-body connection. Because some people are so discombobulated and they just can't get the coordination together. That is important. You know what I'm saying? It is important. I'm not saying you have to be like a freaking the best dancer in the world. But, I mean, working in the gyms, I remember when years ago, when I first started working in fitness, and I remember there was I don't think they really do this anymore, but there was this fitness test where there was people had to step up and down off of a step. So it might be like a step, certain height, and the person had to step up, right leg, left leg, up, down, down, up, down, down. And there was a metronome that made a sound and had a light. There's a red light flashing in front of them going tick, 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 tick. And they were supposed to step up on every tick. So many people could not get that shit. They just couldn't get on the beat. And I'm like, you have a light flashing in front of you and a loud sound, and you can't align your steps with that? To me, there's something wrong, right? There's something deeper. That should not be. You need to work on getting your coordination, your mind-body connection together, okay? And I think that there's no better way to do that than dance. And I also think that when it comes to athletes, in the past, there's times when people have football players doing ballet or basketball players doing ballet. No, okay? Power athletes should not be doing ballet. And this is coming from somebody with a background in ballet and a background in various dance forms, but also a degree in exercise and sports science, and I understand muscle physiology, and I'm going to tell you right now, and I understand training for performance. So I'm going to tell you a few things about why power athletes should not be doing ballet. When you are training for physical performance, right? So you want to run faster. You want to be more explosive. You want to increase your vertical jump. You want your agility to be on point, okay? When you're training for those type of things, or no matter what it is you're training for, let me just say that. You want to engage in activities when you're training that is biomechanically similar, okay, to the sport that you're playing or the movements that you're doing, and something that is physiologically similar, okay? So what does that mean? When you talk about physiologically similar, right, we have different muscle fibers. We have fast twitch muscle fibers and we have slow twitch muscle fibers. Fast twitch muscle fibers are called anaerobic, which means without oxygen. That means it does not use oxygen in its metabolism, okay? Fast twitch muscle fibers have a lot of strength and power, but they burn out very quickly in about 25 seconds, 20 seconds or less, right? Let's say 25 to be a little generous. They burn out in that time period, and they have a lot of explosiveness and strength and power. Slow twitch muscle fibers, okay, are aerobic. That means with oxygen. That means they do use oxygen in their metabolism. And slow twitch muscle fibers can go on for a continuous, amount of time at a moderate intensity. They do not have a lot of strength and power and explosiveness. They can go on for a continuous amount of time at a moderate intensity, and they use oxygen for their metabolism. So we use our fast twitch muscle fibers, and we're born with a certain amount of fast twitch and slow twitch, okay? And then there's one that's in between. I forget what it's called. I don't know if it's 2AB. It's been so long. There's one that's in between type 1 and 2, and depending on how you train your body, it will change more into like a type 1 physiologically, or change more into a type 2 physiologically. So the sports and the activities we're good at have a lot to do with what the percentage of muscle fibers we were genetically given, and then how we train our body. Okay, both of those play a role. So, if you want to be good at a power sport, this is why people cannot be good. You cannot be a good sprinter and also a good distance runner. It's two different body types, different kinds of training. Even if you have the body where you could possibly go either way, which means that you probably wouldn't be you wouldn't be number one at either one. But if you kind of were in that place, which way you went would depend on how you trained your body. You cannot train your body for power sports and be good at aerobic endurance continuous sports like that. It's a different way of training, okay, and it affects your muscle physiology different. So when we do fast twitch muscle fibers are responsible for short bursts of speed and stop things, right? So like in football, somebody throws the ball as hard as they can and they stop. They run as fast as they can. They go from a stagnant position to out and stop. So that's starting and stopping and bursts of speed and power. Same thing with baseball. You are in a stagnant position and you swing at the ball as hard as you can. And then you take off and run as fast as you can. You stop first base, or you get to second base, you stop, whatever. The person that's in the catching the ball, they go from standing to running to catch the ball and then throwing as hard as they can. It's stop, start movements of power and explosiveness, okay? Same thing is true with tennis, track and field and the sprints, right? And then you have sports that are a mixture of the two, like soccer and basketball, which are anaerobic and aerobic, okay? But then you have straight endurance sports, so people who are running miles and marathons and half marathons, and people who are riding their bike for miles, and those are the aerobic, okay? And so because football and basketball not only involves a lot of power and explosiveness, okay, if you play basketball or you play football, you do want to increase how fast you run, okay? You do want to make sure your agility is on point. You do want to make sure a basketball player wants to increase their vertical jump and all that, right? So, even form-wise, ballet, you're turned out. Okay, I'm not going to do it sitting here, but in ballet, I would stand up, but let me show you. It would be easy if I had a camera person. But in ballet, you turn your hips out, right? So I don't know if you can see. You can't see my whole leg. But my legs are turned in, right? This is how you are in African dance. This is how you are when you play football. Most sports, you're the athletic position, right? So my legs are turned in, not out. In ballet, you're always in this turnout, and you do everything from that turnout. And that can make your hips, it's a very unstable position for your hips. If you think about it, there's no activity that people do where they're in that turnout except ballet. But you're definitely not in that turnout in football or basketball or baseball, okay? But when you do African dance, you are, okay? When you do dances of the African diaspora and you're doing things that are explosive, that start, stop, that may go from down to up, you know what I'm saying, depending on the kind of dance that you're doing. So that makes a lot more sense for a power athlete to do over ballet, okay? Because in ballet, you're moving your arms, you're in this turnout, moving your arms very slow, You're lifting your leg up, It's like everything is slow and elongated, and it's activating the soft tissue muscle fibers, which is not what you're using when you play power sports. Okay, so physiologically, it's not a match. Biomechanically, it's not a match. So ballet, ice skating. Ballet is good for ice skaters. Ballet is good for gymnasts. And ballet is good for synchronized swimmers, okay? But it is not good for football players and basketball players and track athletes and hockey players, no. But if they're doing, I need to get a camera person and demonstrate some things. Because right now I feel like getting up and demonstrating some movements some African dance moves that are similar to certain power sports and would help. But I can't do it in this space and not having a camera person. So soon I'm going to get somebody to help me with my videos, and I can do more videos where I show and explain that. But, So, I feel like dance, especially dances in the African diaspora, are overlooked as an amazing training tool. Whether you're an athlete and you want to cross-train to improve your performance, you know what I'm saying? Whether you are somebody who's just a regular person who wants to work on their mind-body connection, have good agility, have good balance. Because part of fitness and being healthy is having good balance. Like, you can slip, but are you going to fall? There's many times I slip and I catch myself. Or I fall for something and I catch myself. I land on my feet because my ankles are stable. I have good awareness. You know what I'm saying? I know how to land properly so I don't injure my knees. You know what I'm saying? So those are important skills to have. Also, the dancing, when you're shaking and gyrating, it feels good. It helps to change your energy. That's why I see so many girls loving to twerk. People look down on it. Oh, they're twerking. Like, girls like to twerk. Don't matter if men are around or not. It has nothing to do with that. Women like to do it because it feels good, and they don't know all the science behind the fact that, we store most of our blood supply in our hips. We store a lot of stress here. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to have glutes that are too tight. It's not good for you, not good for your back. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of science behind it. So I think I made the point. Originally I was going to do this video about something else, but I said, no, let me talk about this. So I just want to say that depending on where you live, because I stayed in New York for years because they had all these dance classes. And I'm like, you can't find it in most of the country. And I have to stay in New York for this reason. But then, I had to go because I love New York, but it's just way too expensive. So I moved to Chicago, and I felt like we don't really have that here too often. The Bay Area also has a lot of dances of the African diaspora. So if you're in the Bay Area, you must check it out. But now Miami has Haitian dance classes. They used to not. And so, I'm always looking to find out. And then there's an amazing Haitian dance teacher who I studied with, she used to be in the Bay Area. And now she's in Minnesota. I'm going to be going to Minnesota soon to study with her at her school, because her school has Haitian drumming, Haitian dance, and Afro-Cuban, 7 days a week. So I'm going to go out there. Somebody was saying that you're rebuilding your leg muscle math for both of your legs. You're learning about muscle function and roles is really helpful, right? Encountering my life is a blessing. Thank you. Definitely. I'm sorry to hear that you were in a bicycle accident. It is really important to strengthen the muscles. I don't know what kind of injuries you have, but when people injure their joints and stuff, you really want to make sure you strengthen the muscles around the joint. If you're dealing with any pain, I always would recommend cannabis medicine. If you have questions about that, please ask. And this will be saved on Instagram, and I will repost it to my YouTube. So there's a teacher in Minnesota that I'll be right outside of Minneapolis, or in Minneapolis. And just found a lovely Afro-Cuban dance class in Chicago, but it seems like it's not always going to be happening. So I'm always looking for classes, because I can talk about these classes all day, but a lot of people don't have access to them. And I remember one time teaching a retreat. This was in 2016 in the Bay Area with Pankazani, also known as Indigimama, an amazing woman in LA. And some of the women who took that retreat, I took them to Congolese and Haitian dance classes, and many of them fell in love with it, okay? There was one girl from Minnesota. I remember some girls from Seattle, they were upset that they didn't have that in their area. And there was one woman from Minnesota who, after the fact, she started going to the Haitian dance class that I'm telling you about in Minnesota. And I came some years later, 3 years later to Minnesota, and she was still doing it. You know what I'm saying? So if you ever have access to these classes, I highly suggest taking advantage of it. And if you live someplace where you don't have it, but you end up in New York, or you end up in the Bay Area, or some city where you can find it, definitely take advantage of it, okay? And if you are somebody who's in that scene, please let me know. And you know, where do you take class at? I'd like to collect this data, okay? And yeah, and also I do work with people one-on-one. So if anybody has any questions about evaluations and sessions with me, I do prefer to, you know, working with people in person when it's physical, like when it's dealing with nutrition and stuff like that. That can be done from a distance. But physical training, I think in person is best, but that's not always possible. So, you know, but I am based in New York and Chicago. I'm in the DC area a lot. I travel around a lot to different places. I'll be in Miami. I'll be in New Orleans. Like, and I just move around, you know, like wherever it's important for me to be at the moment. But I'm always available to work with people. So definitely feel free to email me at thebodyscientist81@gmail.com. And I think I've said what I need to say in this video. If you learned something from it, please like it, please share it, please subscribe to my Instagram. Please follow me on YouTube at thebodyscientist81. And have a great day. Share the video. Bye, people. Keep on moving. Get to dancing. It's good for you.